All right, YouTube. Once again, it's Kennard, Vernon Stewart here for the podcast, talking Auburn football. Down in Deep South, college football is king, and on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. Auburn going into Ole Miss down in Oxford, Mississippi. Man, they're flaming hot down in Oxford, Mississippi right now, where Auburn is actually a huge underdog in an SEC West matchup, where Auburn is usually the victor in this. We look at it historically. You know, you talk about Auburn versus Ole Miss. These are two teams that really historically haven't played each other that much. And Auburn has an obvious edge over Ole Miss over the years. And you talk about a flaming hot Ole Miss team, which lands themselves in the top 10 in the country. And Lane Kiffin is the head coach there. And we're just going to look at this Auburn versus Ole Miss rivalry real quick. Oddly enough, both are founding members of the Southeastern Conference. Auburn and Ole Miss first met October 20th, 1928, and who would have guessed it, in Birmingham, Alabama. Auburn leads the series 35-10. The largest margin of victory for Auburn over Ole Miss is 35-10. No, 41-0. And the longest win streak was 9 games, as Auburn were the victors between 1971 and 1991. These two teams didn't meet that much until the SEC actually formed a 2 sub-conference league where Ole Miss found themselves in the same sub-conference with Alabama, LSU, Mississippi State, blah, blah, blah. So, as we look at it now, Auburn holds a 6-game winning streak over Ole Miss at this time. And if you look at it, man, this is crazy. First met in Birmingham in 1928. Didn't meet again to 1932. Didn't meet again to 1949. And there's a lot of gaps in this rivalry. And that's probably why, you know, people really don't look at this Auburn versus Ole Miss football game as a huge rivalry in the SEC, but it's very consequential coming into the 2022 season. Ole Miss has a lot of great things going on. Lane Kiffin with a great recruiting class, and now finding themselves in the elitism in the SEC. So what do we see here? What do we see going on here with Auburn and Ole Miss? I remember watching back in 2010, Ole Miss and Auburn, and it just wasn't it's always been kind of a snooze fest between these two teams. But now you got a situation where Auburn could be in a situation to where the plug may be finally pulled on the head coach because of this game. And we're going to dig into this in a second. As a matter of fact, I want to give a big shout out to a true Auburn champion who I wish was not right about where Auburn stands. He was one of those 4-8 guys, maybe even worse than that. As it turns out, the Saturday's game against Ole Miss is actually sold out. And you have I want an Ole Miss fan to chime in and let me know what does the whole hotty toddy mean? for Ole Miss. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports. Auburn down in Deep South, college football is king, and on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. Now, as we look at the numbers for Ole Miss, matter of fact, we got to dig these numbers up because they're going to be very important as we talk about this particular football game. And a lot of folks, think that Ole Miss can't play defense, and they really can statistically, and that could pose a problem for the Auburn Tigers. Auburn can't run the ball, and that has been apparent. Auburn has some problems with quarterback play. That has also been apparent as well. And we could be looking at a situation where Auburn could be in a position where there's some exposure here in Oxford, Mississippi this weekend. I mean, you look at the player stats for Ole Miss, these guys are doing incredibly well. You got Jackson Dart that has already 1,358 yards. Averaging 9.5 yards every time he throws the football. But here's the thing. He turns the ball over a little bit. He's been intercepted 5 times. Rushing yards, you got Quinton Judkin with 96 attempts, 581 yards, already doing better than Tank Bigsby, who a lot of folks thought Tank Bigsby was the best running back in the country. But the offensive line has not proven to help Tank Bigsby out to reach that cause. Receiving-wise, here's a guy you got to look out for. I want to give you his number. He's number 1 out of Brandon, Mississippi. His name is Jonathan Mingo. 22 receptions for 507 yards, 3 touchdowns. And if Auburn is going to have a chance to win this game, they're going to have to at least cut down the average per catch in, I wouldn't even say in half. They're going to have to cut this thing down to about 17 yards per reception, because right now he's averaging about 23 yards per reception. So basically what that means is he has big play ability. And if you think about Auburn versus Georgia, man, there were some guys wide open against Auburn and Georgia. On the Georgia side, being the victors, wide open. Just missed him. So that's going to be a thing that we're going to look at. Also, if Auburn is going to be successful on any level of ability to be successful, if Auburn can't run the ball, they can absolutely forget about it. Because you have a freshman quarterback in Robbie Ashford, who is mistake prone, obviously, and he's got to have some help with having something else to rely on other than himself as a passer. He threw like 38 times in the game against Ole Miss. And I'm sorry, guys, if you're a guy that is struggling already, having to throw 38 times against a good team like Ole Miss on the road, that might spell some trouble for the Auburn Tigers. Right now, Auburn's offense, passing-wise, 218 yards per game. My goodness. Tank Bigsby is the leading rusher at 345 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. I mean, the offensive line, something has to give here for the Auburn Tigers. Just absolutely has to give. And you look at an Auburn team. Oh, my goodness. You know, you look at an Auburn team. I know true Auburn champion is absolutely loving the fact that he's right on this. An Auburn team averaging 20 points per game. Their opponents averaging 25 points per game. Auburn is almost the worst. And if you think about the bottom tier of FBS football, it's just abysmal. All right. So the prediction show is coming tomorrow. And it's not going to necessarily be favorable, at least as favorable as I would like for it to be. Looks like the 4-8 crowd at Auburn is winning at this point. There are a lot of guys, starting this season out that thought Auburn would go 4-8. I still, with my orange and blue Under Armour sweater, thinks that, or hopes, that Auburn can squeeze 6 games out and make it to a bowl game. You talk about Ole Miss school history, a team that is 666, 521, and have tied 34 times. They have 6 conference championships and 1 national championship in 1960. Ranked in the AP poll 19 times, preseason 26 times, final. They have been in the final preseason poll 311 times. Vaught Hemingway Stadium with the capacity of 60,580 folks can fit in that stadium, and I guarantee you they're going to get that to 61. That place is going to be packed early in the morning with a top 10 Mississippi State team, Ole Miss team that has only won 10 games twice in the last 6 years. And before that, you can count it back to 2003. So you know that stadium is going to be rocking. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. We are taking a look at the enemy. Down in Deep South, college football is king, and on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. Like the video, comment, and subscribe. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.